Welcome storytellers, game masters, dungeon masters to the stream where I'm going to explain how functions functions work, and also the title of the guide is functions. So functions both works and work, which is a method for game masters that basically the idea was that I realized that I was very bad at GMing because it was too overwhelming for me. So I started reading articles. I think there was even one scientific article among them. So there were a lot of articles that I read about the theory of what are the best practices. I went to a few. I attended like a class or two that were like university classes where we were theorizing about it. And the most important thing is that for years I've been doing experiments. Like I was going on looking for groups, looking for group classifieds, and then I was just testing what works and what doesn't. And there's also special mention of Mendes-Midekamp's Pecan 3 theory that also was very inspiring. It put me on the way to find the basic building blocks of an adventure, and that they turned out to be functions. I call functions because it's based on Vladimir Prop's structural theory of fairy tales. It basically says that there are a bunch of story elements that have to follow each other in the same order. Some of them can miss, some of them can be repeating, but it's always the same order. Now that's not true about role-playing adventures, but it's true that they are modular. These basic elements are modular. You can swap them around, etc. So that's this guide is all about. This guide is all about how to build an adventure from these basic building blocks. Because if you watch an amazing movie or read an amazing novel, they all have theories how to structure them. Like it's the structure of a movie or a novel that sells, that wows you. Like just having interesting characters or items or locations, that's not like that's not enough in movies and novels. So why would it be enough in adventures? You need a well structured adventure, just like a movie or a novel has to be well structured to work, to have an impact on the audience. So the same way you need a structure for the adventure to have an impact on the party. And this guide tells you how to not tells you, it helps you to come up with a method to create this structure. So let's look at the contents. Let's look at the contents. Oh geez, I made them the oh geez, I made the contents links. Geez. Okay, so yeah, there are 3 chapters. So I was when I was working on this, it took 15 years to create this theory. So it took a long time, and that was not enough. I still had to, like, putting them into words was also quite difficult, because I had these theoretical ideas, but how do I, like, no one cares about the theory. There are some weirdos like me who care about the theory, but how does it help? How does it actually help a game master? Like, we need actual practical advice. So I made it. I translated the theory into practical advice, but there was the problem that, okay, but how do I write it so that it will make sense? And then I realized that if we go from the smallest element to the largest one, that will make sense, right? That will make sense. So that's how it's structured. So first of all are the functions, which is basically the building blocks of an adventure. Then structures, which are the way you put together these building blocks, and then the adventures, which basically how you write a whole adventure, or even a campaign. And fun fact, this, where is it written? Okay. Alright, about this guide. So one of the interesting parts of this guide is that it uses actual rules, but I had, like, theoretically, I guess in practice I could have gotten away just using any rule system, because it's just an example, so that's technically fair use, right? Like the way you can talk about movies in a book about movies. But I made it, I wanted to be sure that I can use everything, so I used open open games license for 3 very popular systems. Well, back in the 90s, the two of these were very popular back in the 90s, where when I started role playing, and of course I started 5. So Open D6, which I love in Star Wars D6. Star Wars D6, in my opinion, is the best, one of the best role playing games out there, and it's very good for beginners. It's much better than D&D for beginners, I think. Legend, you might not know what Legend is. Legend is the open version of, I think it's called BRP, basic role playing. It's basically it's the open version of the system that was used for Call of Cthulhu, and of course the SRD5 of that's. And I'm not allowed, by the way, this is not, I'm not saying that this makes these examples compatible with these systems, because that's forbidden to say. but the non-example parts, the actual advice is universal. So that's, I think I can say that I think I'm allowed to say that universal advice is compatible with any system that has, like, these are I'm talking about traditional role-playing games. We're not talking about Universalis, we're not talking about Troll Babe, we're not talking about Dogs in the Vineyard. We're talking about D&D, we're talking about Star Wars, we're talking about Call of Cthulhu, where there's one game master or storyteller or dungeon master, and who's basically all powerful and writes an adventure and then GMs that adventure to a party of players who each control one character. Or I guess it can be multiple characters. Like I don't like Ars Magica might still be okay, but I think Ars Magica is also weird with this like this only works with basically with role-playing game systems that don't tell you how to structure the adventure. If a role-playing game tells you how to structure the adventure, then obviously you cannot really use this system to structure the adventure. Then you have to use the role-playing game's rules to structure the adventure, obviously. So this is basically giving you a second leg when a role-playing game just misses that leg. It doesn't tell you how to structure your adventure. Boom, here's the system, use this. So this is basically the other leg of those role-playing games. So what's a function? What the heck is a function? And I start with the so-called mechanical functions because that's what I called functions at first. Like that was the idea. So whenever the game master applies a rule to a player, because we're talking about real. We're not talking about the fictional story. We're talking about real world gameplay, like the way the players interact with each other. That's what we're talking about. So whenever the game master applies a rule to a player of the party, that's a mechanical function. So the great thing about it that one of the most useful parts of it is that when you write an adventure, the GM's notes for an adventure, then the usage of game mechanics that are in the rule book, that can be annotated with very, very short, succinct lines. So, for example, when there's a combat, a combat can last, like combat scene can last for an hour, right? A combat scene can last for an hour, and all you have to write down is the stats of the enemies, and then you're good. Then you have a combat scene. So that's the great thing about mechanical functions, that you can just reference the rules, and then you don't have to write a lengthy GM's note, right? And basically, boom, there's this you can already write an adventure with just if you don't care about descriptions, if you don't care about like role play, the role play part of the game, you just care about the gaming part of the game, then you can already have an adventure with a list of mechanical functions. Like you just go through, there's a trap, there's a fight, you have to roll a climb, athletics, etc. So this is the, if you understand how this works, then you will understand how the entirety of the system works, because me realizing this, that an adventure can just consist of a list of game mechanics, that blew my mind. because that's a good starting structure. That's a good start. It's not like, I'm not saying that this is everything, but this is a good skeleton. So what am I missing? Yeah, so only those rules should be referenced in the GM zones that you have memorized. Like, for example, a very typical example is that when there's a spell effect, I don't remember every spell. I don't remember every spell, so I won't reference the spell name in the GM zones. But if you remember exactly what one spell does, then it's easier for you to just write down the spell name and the stats of the, like, the power the magnitude of that spell when it can be changed. Most RPGs allow you to most RPGs have like scaling spells, right? But I usually don't remember spell effects, so that means that I would have to list explicitly what mechanical effects a spell does, right? And here are the examples. Now, next step, non-mechanical functions. These are the two type of functions that exist. There are no other type. Like there are multiple ways to categorize functions. We will see, but every function is either mechanical or non-mechanical. Originally, I called these dramatic functions, but then I realized that actually that's not a true dichotomy, right? Like, so non-mechanical functions are basically anything that's not game mechanic based. And the thing is, what I realized is that when GMing, every non-mechanical function is just the GM sharing information about the shared fictional world. And when we're here, we have to remember something very important, that there isn't only one shared fictional world. Every player, including GM, has a separate fictional world in their head. That's from Messerschmitt-Schmidt's Pecan 3 theory or model, I should say. That that it's not just true that one thing is that it's one thing that each player adds different things to the shared content, like the explicit content that's said out loud around the table. It's a one thing that players have selective perception of what's happening. Like, you won't and can't digest everything that's said around the table. So, and so you have a specific view of things happening, and that's why it's important for the game master to share as much information as possible. The game master's role is not to hide information from the players, but to share as much information as possible. But so every non-mechanical function is basically sharing information, and this is why it's important to find a way to categorize non-mechanical functions. Now, here is an example categorization, but you can come up with your own. But I think this is a good categorization. And the way you would denote these on in the GM's notes is to shorten the classification, like which class of function, non-mechanical function it is, and then write a concise, to the point, short description about it. It's very important. You're not writing beautiful prose to be read aloud. You're writing notes that helps you be very specific and to learn everything about that is to know about that function. So the example classification is as follows. There's situation or narration. This is the GM breaking the fourth wall, sharing meta information. This is usually when the GM sets up the situation. There's description when the GM describes something. There can be an experience. Now, experience is different from description because description is the objective, inherent attributes of a thing in the world, while experience is the subjective experience of the character of a player. Experience is rarer. It usually happens when a character dreams something, has a vision about something, or has a different type of vision than the others. Like if someone has night vision, and very similar to the next one is very similar to the previous knowledge, because it's very, this is very important. I think in my experience, a lot of GMs forget that the characters are way more knowledgeable than the players. Even the fighters, like the simplest fighter, an orc fighter, knows way more about combat and tactics and strategy than an average player. So the GM might want to share previous knowledge. Inform. This is in-game information. So, for example, someone sends a message. An NPC tells something to the party. They get a letter or something. Next is question. It's a modified version of inform, which is an inform, but they require an answer. Like the players need to tell something as a reply. Request is that, and based on the reply, there's a fork in the road. So later functions will. There will be different kind of functions in the adventure after the question based on the reply. Request is similar, but here it's not a reply that's required, but some kind of action. So based on whether the party does the action or not, different functions will happen in later the adventure. And there's action or event is some kind of event or an act of an NPC or an event of a fictional universe. Like it's very basic. It's a version of description basically. And there's reaction. This is a conditional function. So this means that this function is made up of two parts, similarly to question request. There's a condition and until that condition is fulfilled, nothing is happening. So the problem with this, you might need this kind of functions, but the problem with this is that the notation system in this method is the goal of the notation system in this method is to only focus on one function at the same time. So basically, any adventure can be written in 2 sheets of paper. So an open notebook, right? You have an open notebook in front of you, and you never have to flip through papers. Just leave the open notebook in front of you, and you can put your finger at the one function where you're at, right? You only need to focus on that one function. The problem with functions like reaction, these conditional functions, is that every conditional function has to be in your focus at all times. So that multiplies the effort you need to have. So you should avoid as much as possible these conditional functions, but sometimes you need them for your adventure. Sometimes you need them. Yeah, so now that they're classified, they can be written very shortly in the GM's notes. Yeah, 2 practices can make the non-mechanical functions even more effective. Use specific non-mechanical functions. If you want to make the party of players understand that something is difficult or inconvenient, for example, then name one specific difficulty or inconveniency. That will feel more like an experience, and the players will remember it. Like, so don't just say that, oh, climbing this mountain is super hard. Say that your foot slips or something like that, right? Another useful practice is to use no more than one function of each type for the same purpose. Yeah, so for example, saying that, okay, your foot slips, and then next your hand slips. That's when climbing the mountain. That's not adding to the, that's just annoying. But if you use 3 different kind of functions, for example, first use an inform function. An NPC tells the players that, hey, that mountain, it's super hard to climb that. The second one, when they arrive at the mountain, you describe how the wind is howling and how terrible it is. And the third one is their foot slips. And that's 3 different kind of functions which all tell the story that this is a very difficult mountain to climb. And you just saying that, well, it's very difficult to climb, it won't have the same impact unless you like, if you do multiple different kind of specific functions, and now you add a mechanical function to it, like, okay, a roll climbing, and then they have to roll a hard skill roll or something like that. So that already, now we already, just by using functions, we already crafted a very like an experience. We crafted an experience for the players like this. So that's how we use non-mechanical functions. Okay. And let's let's take a short break, and we will continue with the basic functions in after. Hopefully probably it's 3 minutes. So we'll be back in probably 3 minutes. And we're back. Okay, so basic functions. This is just a very short explanation that because a function as in the entry in the GM's note it's a shorthand basically. That means that it can be the shorthand of a very simple thing or a very complicated thing, right? So for example, one function one function can be just a combat, just one skill test, or it can be a combat scene. Now a skill test takes a second, a combat scene can take an hour. So now the skill test cannot be taken apart into smaller parts, but the combat scene can be. Like combat scene is basically like hundreds of skill tests basically. So in theory, this is the difference. In practice, the big difference is that functions can last for different amount of time, and as a GM, you have to learn basically how fast do you GM each function type. Like and that's just practice. That's just practice because everyone GMs differently. So so everyone will have a different combat length, right? Yeah, and this will be important when we get to what an adventure is. Okay, players' functions. Now, the GM is just one of the players. The GM is just one of the players. So, and everyone adds their content to the game, even the players, even all the other players. So these are called players' functions, which are not done by the GM, but you can plan them somewhat. You can plan them somewhat. The main player's function is the conflict. Basically, it's a fork in the road. Like, it has at least two outcomes, and the actions of the player decide the outcome of a conflict. Now, there are two types of conflict: tests and decision. In the case of a test, it's obvious which outcome is better, like winning a combat, or passing a skill test, etc. Decisions, in the case of decisions, it's not obvious until much later. So both can be non-mechanical. Like, a non-mechanical test is usually called a puzzle. That's usually called a puzzle. The non-mechanical decision is kind of obvious. That's role playing, right? The decisions matter, etc. Mechanical test is obvious too. I don't know how mechanical decision works. I guess, for example, leveling up might be a mechanical decision, which abilities the player takes, but that's not covered. Leveling is not covered in this guide. Like, mostly GMing is covered as writing and performing, basically. The way you should or would have to or interact with the player, like your connection with the players is not, that didn't fit into the, like, there was, I was planning on a second part, functions 2, which is about how players behave usually and how you can interact, how it's some best practice how to interact with the players, like in leveling, character creation, etc. That's not covered in this guide, but we are covering conflicts. Now, the thing about decisions is that you should not make it obvious. Like, if it turns out in the end that one of the outcomes was better than the other one, you shouldn't make it obvious instantly, because that's just a test then, right? That's just a test where the player goes in blind, and that's not fun. So the thing about So basically, a conflict means that based on the outcome, you will GM different functions. In the case of a test, a successful test will lead to functions as rewards, and non-successful tests will lead to functions as punishment. And in the case of a decision, it's not obvious which outcome gets better functions. Generators. Now this is where it starts getting interesting. Generators, I originally call these fruitful functions because we are still doing, a generator is still just one entry in the GM's nodes. This is the soul of this method, that almost everything is just one entry in the GM's nodes, and it can give you a lot of content. So everyone uses generators. We're just giving them a name. A generator is some kind of content that helps you create functions, series of functions. With a definition: content which helps the GM easily create a multitude of functions, or an entry in the GM's node containing or referencing such content. So, for example, the behavior on NPC is based on its character. So, for example, a good NPC does good things. So you write down that the NPC is good, and that will yield good actions, right? The good actions are the functions that were created. Like, you don't write down every good thing that the NPC does, you just write down that they're good. Now, this is very vague. Like, you obviously should write down more specific things, right? Or it can be some kind of thing known about the world, like orcs are ugly, elves live forever. Like, if every orc is ugly, then that will help you describe every orc. Like, if an orc appears in the game and in your world every orc is ugly, then you won't describe that orc as beautiful. Like, I'm not saying that every orc has that means every orc has the same description, but every orc has an ugly description. Now, there are multiple kind of generators, but for example, a combat function is also a generator, right? When you write down the stats of an enemy and you say, well, combat scene, that generates a lot of functions in the combat scene. Yeah, so there are let me read this. Yeah, so generators can be categorized by different aspects. The simplest way is to divide them based on whether you use them when you're writing an adventure or when you're GMing at a session. The generators used at a session should create as many functions as possible from as little content as possible, such as are the personality traits of an NPC, the architecture of a building, the weather of an area. Yeah, because so you write down the generator, and then you come up with new functions during the game. Like, you are ad-libbing new functions based on the generator written down. And the other one helps you write a huge adventure during writing. So Another way to categorize generators is whether they are created when writing the adventure or at the session. Right, because sometimes you ad-lib the generator itself. Like you have to improvise. Now there's a third type of differentiating between generators, and this is whether they are objective or subjective. Objective generators I call when it's like a fact about the world, and it means that you have to think about it, use your rational mind, and that adds some strain, right? So it's better to use when writing to create a world that makes sense, that's consistent. So objective generators is good to create a consistent world, but it adds to your efforts. It's much more effort to use than the other type. And yeah, so these generators are restrictive, the objective generators, which means that objective generators only generate functions that are in their purview, or how would you say it? So like, let's see, if I say that in this world elves are all immortal, then that's what it does. Every elf, like an elf appears, they're immortal, boom. So it doesn't do anything else than what it does. But there are also subjective generators. A subjective generator is, I'm so proud of this invention. It's just a content that's easy to associate from, right? So for example, if instead of writing down a lengthy explanation how an NPC behaves, maybe you just know a person that behaves exactly like that, and you just write down their name, and then you know what you mean. And it, like it's not, it does, the GM's notes don't, the players will never see the GM's notes, right? So you can just write down a secret symbol if you know what it means, and then reference that. Maybe an animal, like maybe a character behaves like a snake. What does that mean, right? You have subjective associations to snakes, and that helps. Like objectively, snakes have no association with human behavior, right? There's no objective real association there. It's just there's just a cultural association that we have, and we can associate. Now, the important part is about subjective generators that they are not restrictive, because you freely associate stuff from them. If they are too generic, you can associate anything from them, anything and everything. So you have to be very specific with the subjective generators. Otherwise, they will be useless. Okay, delegating. This is another interesting thing that I don't think GMs do it. Not a lot of GMs do it. So basically, I advise to use it when you have to improvise, like when the party leaves the predetermined path of the adventure, then you need to improvise content for them, right? Now, you might the generic wisdom is to stop the game, you come up with some stuff, and then you and then you continue, right? That's how that's the, I guess, normal way to do. But what if you use the brains of your party? Like, can you imagine, like, if you have just 3 players, you quadrupled the number of brains working on the adventure. So delegating can be powerful, but how do you use it? You cannot just ask them to create the function, the content itself, the functions themselves, but what you need are generators, right? You need generators, and you need subjective generators, and that's great because the players don't know what they mean to you, right? But how can you ask them to create subjective generators when they don't see into your head? Well, use archetypes that everyone understands. Tell them to, okay, everyone say an animal. Like, every player come up with one animal, or every player come up with one color, or every player I don't know. So there are, come up with a movie title. Like, if you use animal is my favorite way to do it, but whatever works for you, and then you can use those contents to create new functions. Okay, the role of randomness, I really this is just basically a tirade against randomness. There are a lot of reasons why you shouldn't use randomness. The only, in my opinion, the only place where randomness is okay is when the game mechanics ask for it, because then the players know about it already. We assume the players know the rules, and you use the rules a lot, so it will average out. The rolls will average out. So, for example, if you have a hit chance of 1 in 4, then you will have enough attacks during the session that around 1/4 of your attacks will hit. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that. As far as I know, I guess studies, I could say, I read in an article that it's best practice to allow the players to get 2/3, or like 2 successes out of 3 tries, right? One success out of 3 tries is miserable. 2 successes out of 3 tries is okay. That feels fair. Half is miserable. Don't do that. So, but let's say that I have a very good example here. Let's say that 20% of a city's population is elven, right? If there's 20% chance that the first person the party meets will be an elf, and you roll, and you get the 20% chance, so you get the elf. The first person they meet is an elf. That will feel 100% to the players. The first person they met in the city is an elf, right? So they don't know that what you rolled, why you rolled. It don't make sense. So they will not experience the randomness. They will only experience the outcome of randomness. So So there are a lot of ways to avoid using randomness like this, and which is that try to come up with the best outcome yourself. Try to come up with the best outcome yourself. I heard an idea that that if you want to know the outcome of something, the best outcome, say that okay, say that you will flip a coin and say that like let's say an elf and a dwarf are fighting in combat, and one will win the combat, the other one will die, and you don't know which is better. Like, let's say if it's heads, the elf wins, if it's tails, the dwarf wins, and you flip the coin, but instead of taking the one you got, after the flip you will feel something. You either will feel, phew, I'm so glad that it landed on heads, or I'm so glad that it landed on tails, or oh no, I wish it lands on tails, or oh no, I wish it landed on heads. So you will know which one you wanted. So make a decision yourself. Like you can use randomness in this way, but don't let the randomness get the players. There's no reason. There's no reason for that. Like, or for example, coming up multiple outcomes just to choose one randomly. Like, you could have come up with one outcome instead. So don't use randomness. GMing is an art form. Art needs intent. Art needs intent, and randomness destroys the intent. Okay, so we're done with functions. Next is structures. Okay, list. This is obvious. List is a sequence of entries. Now these entries can be functions, generators, other structures. Basically, if you the most simple adventure is a list of mechanical functions, right? And you just go through the list. But a list can work all kinds of ways. It doesn't have to be like a chronological list. I classify them 4 kinds, but the thing is that lists don't need classification. You will know automatically how a list works because you write a list for a reason. For example, these things will happen. These things are true about this NPC, etc. Or what I like is the conditional list, which is basically every time the players focus on something, they go down the list. For example, there's a ruined city, and each building is a list. And they can go deeper and deeper into each building, going down the list. But then they can turn back, go out into the city, go into another building. Excuse me. But the lists that you should be wary of, avoided, is I call enumeration. For example, when an NPC is described, like in traditional modules, when an NPC is described, that's an enumeration, like a list of traits. But the problem with this kind of list is that you have to remember each entry in the list at the same time. It's terrible. Try to avoid it. Try to put every entry into some kind of chronology, because you want to focus only on one at the same time, and you want to know where you are. Like, the way this GM notation works is that there's a bunch of entries in structures in front of you, and you are at one specific entry, and and you don't have to worry about anything else, because you know that when something matters you will get there. That's how this works. Okay, here are some examples. And the next structure is the networks. This might be the one of the most controversial take, is that I don't use maps in TTRPGs. I don't use maps because there's no difference between the mountainside at 500 feet high and 501 feet high. There's no difference between them. So why would you draw a beautiful map when you have to like compute all the variables based on where exactly they are? No, don't do that. Do this instead of a map. Like, there are the hills, there's the moat bridge into the city, or they can go through the cistern to the city through a hidden path. So basically the network is a bunch of nodes connected with paths, and you can put a structure on each node and on each path. For example, typically you would put a list on a path, and that list will have functions that will decide whether the players can get through that path, right? And usually each node will have a list. Now, if you want to make a big adventure, my advice is to have so you can put structures in nodes and paths. You can even put a network on one of the nodes, another network. And my advice is to, if you do that, only use one node, because then you will have two networks, and that's more than enough for one afternoon. And I have some. Yeah, if you want to try something really interesting, create a network which doesn't describe spatial relations but some other kind of system. The state of a machine, a complicated ritual, an NPC's state of mind, a PC's state of mind, etc. Just remember, so you can do very interesting things with this, but remember, without a physical manifestation in the fictional universe or a mechanical stat the players can look at, the party of players will have a harder time understanding the network, and you have to make it as simple as possible for them. So let's say let's say they are let's say they're interrogating an NPC, and they have to get to a place where the NPC trusts them, and they have to go through a network of positions for the NPC. They if the network portrays a map in an adventure, the party understands that. The party cannot see into the mind of the NPC, so they won't understand that it's a network, right? So you have to be very specific and not vague at all. Not vague at all. Okay, now this is and now that we have networks, we can have a party stat table. Basically, you get all the player characters stats and put them in a table. It's very simple, but it's super useful because now you can make a network that makes sure that the path the party needs to take to finish the adventure, the entire party can get through that path, right? You can add nodes where that can be reached only by one member of the party easily, and the other party members cannot reach it. For example, it's one of the typical versions is climbing. Like if one character can climb much better than the others, or jump farther, or something like that, or smaller and can fit through a hole, like some things like that, right? Then you can tailor make that node to that one character, right? And there might be some nodes that might be reached only with a low probability or at a large cost of resources by the whole party. So those are some special extra nodes. Okay, next one is carriers. Now we've been talking about the structure, but the thing is that like most of the time, typically when you say adventure, most people think the characters, the items, the locations. But the thing is that you can have the same functions and just change the underlying objects, the carriers. Like the fictional object, the NPC carries the functions. For example, let's say it's important for the party to learn a fact at a certain point in the adventure. You can have an NPC tell them. They can find out themselves. Like you can switch which NPC. You can have an NPC tell them. You can have another NPC tell them. You can have them see it. You can have them find a note. Like these are all different carriers for the same function. So you can craft an adventure without knowing the exact carriers of the functions. Like you might need for them to learn the players to learn something, or you might need them to have a combat for like to impede their movement, or maybe let's say they need to be like combat wary when they arrive in a village, right? So that the villagers will see them bloodied and tired, etc. Then they need to have a combat scene just before arriving at the village. Now it doesn't matter in that moment who they will combat with. During the writing of the adventure, you might realize that it would make sense if they would fight this or that, but at first, when you just need them to be combat wary when they arrive in the village, it doesn't matter who the carrier is yet. So you can just write in the function at the place that, hey, combat with this stat, you can even write down the stats, what you need, and you don't know yet if it's a monster, an NPC, or whatever. So this is the great thing about this kind of about functions, that you can structure an adventure and then move the parts around without having to worry that you will ruin the adventure. Yeah, here's an example how the party can learn that they were attacked by the prince's people. Like one of the armed men can shout in the name of the prince, or uh, an NPC might recognize them that, hey, these are the prince's people, right? Okay, now, and this is the great work of this method. This is the pinnacle. This is how, this is the miracle. Like, this is the magic. This is where you create fantastic things. The generator matrix. A generator matrix is basically two or more generators that are perpendicular to each other. And my favorite example is that you can make a ball full of nobles, right? And more than 100 nobles. You can have more than 100 nobles. So the way it works is that let's say one generator content can tell you how one person behaves. 5 generators can tell you how 5 people behaves in very like this very archetypal ways, right? Like very cliched. These are cliched people. Now, so you have 5 generators that will create 5 very cliched NPCs. Like these are small roles. Now, if you add 5 more generators, then instead of adding the same kind of generators and getting 10 people, come up with a different category and put them in a table, like rows and columns, 5 rows and 5 columns. That gives you 25 different NPCs. And if you add 5 more, then you get 125 different NPCs just using 15 generators. Like you can look up which 3 generators like you just put down these write down these tables, right? And you put the names in them. You at the start of the column, at the top of the columns, and at the start of the rows, you put the generators in a 5x5 table, and in the table itself you put the names of the NPCs. Now you have 25 NPCs. Now you have 25 NPCs, and you don't have to memorize each NPC. You just have to know what the 2 generators mean, right? You just have to know what the 2 generators mean. And if you add 5 more, that means an NPC will be based on 3 attributes, like 3 attributes. And there will be 125 different NPCs. So this is the magnum opus. This is my magnum opus. Like you can role play an army of NPCs. It's I love this. Okay, idling. So there are different kinds of timescales when you GM, right? There are 3 main kinds listed here. One is when you act out every NPC and every player character they are acting. That's the slowest version. And the fastest version is when you just say one sentence that, and this happens, boom, we're over. Like you climb, you travel over the mountain, or you travel over the ocean. That's the fastest. And there's one between them where you don't role play, but you describe what everyone's doing. Like, and he tells you that, right? Basically, just by not role playing speeds up things a lot. Now, now the problem is that when you go on a faster pace, that feels like some players might feel like they're missing out on opportunities, right? And many times one player might think that the other player wants opportunities and then slow down. Like it's very important. So there's a tendency to play everything slower than it needs to be, just to be sure. But you as a GM have the responsibility to speed things up. Like the most typical example of this is the breakfast scene. Like, okay, you're at the inn. Okay, we go down to have breakfast. Like, you don't have to role play the breakfast. You can just say, okay, we had breakfast. We're on the road. Like, and I'm not saying that don't have enjoyable role playing moments, but in my opinion, it's much, and like the scenes that you wrote beforehand to have the drama in them, right? Those are much more enjoyable with role playing than nothing with role playing. Like, role playing itself is enjoyable, but if you add drama to it, if you add story to it, if you add conflict to it, then the role playing is much more enjoyable. So, and you probably wrote enough of that to fill an afternoon. So don't waste role playing time on scenes that really don't matter to anybody, right? That it's I think this is important. Okay, real time. So this might be also controversial. This might also be controversial. An adventure is the GM's plans for one session, because if you just have a story in mind and then you play and then the time runs out of the session and then you're at a random point, that's not very good in my opinion. I think you should write enough for one session, and after the session ends, by the way, even if it ended at a random place, now you can write the adventure for the next session. Now you can write the next session, right? Even if it was abruptly stopped, you don't have to continue playing the exact same thing that you wrote. What you wrote and you didn't play, that doesn't matter, really. Like if something you wrote didn't affect the game, then it's just like you didn't write it. Now, obviously, if there are like background things that motivation, etc., that I'm not saying that you should throw those away, but basically the next one should be a part 2, right? Then it's like a two-parter episode, right? So try to write in a way that you can have a satisfying, like, I'm not saying that you should only write one shot. I'm saying is that plan a satisfying ending at the end of each session. That doesn't have to be the end of the story, but like sessions are real, right? If things just happen randomly and then happen and then happen and then happen, boom, it's over suddenly. It's that's not satisfying. Write a satisfying ending for the session, and then the next time you can write the next part. So adventure is each session is one adventure. And the next thing is and this is why you need to experience to learn how long each function takes. And the other thing is something revolutionary: real-time functions. Imagine a function that's activated based on real-world time. Like, for example, a storm will start at half point. The storm will start at a bomb goes off 2 hours before the end of the session. Things like this. And this is where my favorite kind of, like, if you write a one shot, I think the best, most memorable kinds of one shots are the what I call pressure cookers. Basically, start, you lock the party into one location that they cannot leave until they solve the problem, and like let's say every hour they have to make a skill check or an attribute check that's harder every hour, and at the end, like, I don't know, half hour before the end of the session, quarter hour before the session, the check will be so hard that it will be impossible for them. Like, the players will see, like, the first check will be with +2, the second check will be +0, the next check will be -2, and they will see exactly how fast the checks are going to the impossible, right? So they will have to solve the problem before the checks become impossible. But the thing is that try not to make these real-time checks too long, because let's say if you do it a combat sequence, let's say a combat sequence that takes 50 minutes, every hour you put in a 50-minute combat, that won't work. You try to make this the fastest, the simplest real-time check, and then the most of the time should be the players trying to figure out how to exit the location. And this is okay. Next, anatomy of an adventure. Now this is where we can at last use the functions, the building blocks of an adventure, because now that we know what an adventure is made of, we can make an adventure feel like a real movie or a novel. Like, we can really wow the players with a well structured adventure. And just like with script writing, there's a script writing advice, and many people try to compare script writing advice with good movies that don't follow it, And like script writing advice just means that, hey, this is a method that works. If you have another method that works for you, then use your structure. But I came up with a structure that I think really works. So to build an adventure, come up with a core central conflict for the adventure. That will decide if the players win the adventure or lose it, or it's a conflict, so it doesn't have to be a test. It can be a decision, right? It can be a decision, like should you convict someone, or should you let them go free based on your investigation? And there's no good answer. It's based on your morality, what you think is best. So you have this conflict that will have some functions that will result from the conflict, right? Like if it's a test, then reward the party or punish the party based on win or lose. But so what does a conflict make central? So if you have a central conflict, the entire adventure should be built on that central conflict. You can do a bunch of things before the party gets the central conflict. You can, for example, tell them about it. I know it sounds weird, but the more the players know about the central conflict, the more they can think about it, the more exciting it will be for them. Like, I know that there's this urge for the game master to hide information from the players, but I promise you, they don't know enough anyway. Like, you can literally tell everything about the adventure, including the secrets, and the players would still be lost because they are players and they are not the game master. They are lost. You can. It's okay to tell them as much as you can. So, and especially about the central conflict, like, don't jump it on them. Like, if you give them information about the central conflict, then they can think about it more. If it's a test, they can strategize. If it's a decision, then they can moralize, right? So this is you can inform them. That's one thing to do about the central conflict. Another thing you can do about central conflict is you can have the party practice it, like not the exact same conflict, but give them similar conflicts. Like, if there will be a big boss fight in the end, then give them a smaller fight in the first half of the adventure that has similar enemies, for example, so that they can learn how to fight them. Or if it's a decision, then have them make a less important but similar decision. And by the way, Mass Effect 2 made an amazing thing that blew my mind when it happened to me. That like at the end of Mass Effect 2, you need to make a decision what to do with the remains of the boss you just defeated. And when you have a specific NPC with you, he will call you out because if you made a different decision about a similar conflict beforehand, right? So similar decisions can inform the players, like yeah, okay, it's obviously this, it's obviously A and not B, But what about we change the context of the decision? Then will it be obviously B? So you can have them practice the central conflict. That's the second thing you can do about it. The third thing is that you can give them options to change the central conflict. You can have them change the stakes. You can have them change the chances. Like let's say make them give them tests, right? Like let's say in a very simplistic manner, I think one of the gold box game did it, that when there was the boss was an ifrit and he was surrounded by priests, and the priests were shooting like hold person at you, so it was impossible to fight him. But if you killed priests, these evil priests in the city before going to the Ifrit, those priests were gone from the Ifrit's surroundings. Like then, so for example, you could give the players the chance to kill off hard to kill enemies before they get to the final boss fight. Or that's one thing. Or you can have like have them like make a decision less problematic for them somehow. Like make the better but still bad sounding decision less bad sounding. Like maybe let's say that you have to decide to either execute a convict or let them go free, right? This is the final decision. They are, let's say that the party is told that, hey, you are the judges of this convict, you can investigate what he did, and after the investigation you have to tell if to execute him or to let him go. Now these are the only two decisions you can have according to law. Now let's say that you give the party the chance to change execution to what's it called? Dang it, I forgot the word. What's the word? Exile. Like let's say you get the chance to, like let's say that they have to make a test for about finding a precedent, a legal precedent that can turn an execution into an exile, right? So let's say that that it turns out during the investigation that the convict is actually guilty, but you don't think that he deserves death penalty, right? Then you can get a test to change the conviction to exile. So that's how you can change the decision. So these are the three things. Now, these three things might not be enough to fill a session with content, right? So what can you do? You can take these the conflicts that are under the central conflict. Like for example, you can take this test that helps you change the central conflict. You can take this test and do the same thing with it as you did with the central conflict, that give them the chance that to inform the party about it, to give them a chance to practice it, or to give them a chance to change it. So you can create a whole hierarchy of these central conflicts. Okay. And let's take a break because my throat is parched. So we'll be back probably in 3 minutes. Back. Okay, so okay. This. I guess this is a bit. This sounds at first it sounds a bit more esoterical, canon and microcosm, but this is this is basically very practical advice, which is that during you have to separate the canon and of the canon of the game and the microcosm of the adventure. And by adventure I mean the gameplay during a session, which means that of course when the party is making characters, when you're writing the adventure, then you will flip through source books and novels and whatnot. But the moment you start playing, you start GMing the game, the moment the game starts, forget those. Only what's in the adventure matters, right? It doesn't matter what's in the source book, it doesn't matter what's in the novel. Only that matters which is in the adventure and what is said by the players, including the GM. So it's this method is not only about helping you not to flip through books. It actually we are actually banning the books. Like don't like it doesn't make any sense to flip through source books. You put everything that matters into the adventure. If you have to improvise, then that didn't matter for the adventure anyway. So it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if your improvisation contradicts the source books or the novels. You cannot. It's impossible. It's impossible to make to remember every fact in every source book and every novel. So your fictional world will differ from the source books and novels, etc. in some way. Anyways, every party has their own version of the world. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Don't let the players force you to flip through source books when you should be GMing amazing scenes. Okay, interrupted adventures. Yeah, this is basically what I described before. That if something, if you're interrupted, if you cannot finish the adventure by the end of the session, that's not optimal, that's not ideal, but you just make it a two-parter then, which means that you write a sequel for the next session, right? So it's not what didn't happen. And the campaign. So how do you write a campaign? Basically, this has been so long ago. This has been so long ago that we could. Oh, I pressed the wrong. Let's read it, because I honestly don't remember the exact things. Yeah, so in traditional RPGs, creating a character takes a lot of time and effort, which creates a need for a game that lasts for multiple sessions, with the adventures creating a campaign. Just like you shouldn't write indefinitely long adventures with arbitrary session breaks, you shouldn't write an indefinitely long campaign abandoned at an arbitrary point. A campaign can be a more satisfying experience if it has a start, a middle, and an end, creating one self-contained narrative. If a session is analogous to an episode of a TV show, a campaign is analogous to a season. Just like with adventures, the length of a campaign should be tailored to the availability of the players. In practice, if an adventure is defined by a central conflict, a campaign can be outlined by a series of central conflicts. Yep. I love this. I love this. This plan doesn't have to be set in stone. You can revise it after each session. It's especially important to take the party's decisions into account when planning future central conflicts. Every central conflict in the campaign should have some kind of motivator, a purpose to support the campaign. A central conflict can focus on one motivator or have multiple ones. The party. The party is an important motivator, both the party of characters and the party of players. When the PCs are created, pay attention to what kind of conflicts the character players want to see in the game. If you put off party-based central conflicts to later adventures or use it only once to introduce the pieces to each other, it can lose its impact. A dramatically strong campaign has to resonate with the party both at the very beginning and at the very end. It also doesn't hurt to remind the party how important they are with party-motivated central conflicts in between. At the start, you can hook the party by having a central conflict which resonates with the whole party, but later adventures can focus on each player separately. The setting. One of the goals of an adventure can be to teach the party about the setting. Even using the same sourcebooks, two different GMs will have different fictional worlds in their head, which makes this a useful motivator even in a widely known setting. Such a central conflict can serve as a spotlight that shines on one aspect of the setting. If you plan to use an interesting, unique feature of the setting in the central conflict, first introduce that feature in an earlier central conflict. Such an adventure can be a break from the more intense party or story-based adventures. The quote-unquote story. Just like every adventure is built around the central conflict, a campaign can be built around its own main central conflict. Some of your adventures will have central conflicts motivated by the main central conflict of the campaign. These story-based adventures can inform the party about the main central conflict or serve as opportunities to modify the main central conflict. Such story-based adventures should be utilized towards the end of the campaign, closer to the resolution of the main central conflict of the campaign, leading up to the climax. But keep the main central conflict in mind even earlier, especially when writing the very first adventure. Previous adventure. Occasionally a central conflict will be motivated by a previous adventure. This typically happens when an adventure was interrupted for some reason, but sometimes the party reacts to an adventure in an interesting way and you want to challenge them with higher stakes or a more complex structure. Certainly you don't have to write up every central conflict beforehand to write a campaign, and even if you do, you might change your mind about the future mid-campaign. Every part is different, every GM is different. Yeah, so basically a campaign is just a series of central conflicts for each adventure, and then between each session you write an adventure around that central conflict. That's how, and at the end of the guide there's a sample adventure in SRD5 where it's an example for writing the adventure, and these are the two sheets these two sheets contain the entire adventure. These two A4 sheets. I'm not sure if Americans use A4, but I use A4. So with these two sheets, you can tell the entire adventure. Yeah, this might be, the sample adventure might be more interesting than I thought. So how does this work? At the end of this chapter, you'll find an example for GM's notes of an adventure. It includes functions, lists, and network, generators, and generator matrices. The example makes use of the notation described in this guide, making it possible to write a whole adventure in 2 pages. The notes are compact and easy to follow for the GM who wrote the adventure, but it might be hard to understand for someone who doesn't know what it is about. Some of the gaps will be filled out here. As this is an SRD5 adventure, the game mechanics require you to have maps for the combat encounters. These are additional to the 2 pages of GM notes. Keep them in one stack with a name on each of them, and you can quickly find them once referenced in the notes. The specific adventure will need only one such map. So when I say I don't use maps, D&D combat, the game mechanics require you to have like a grid-based map, right? So that's part of the game mechanics. That's not the map I was talking about. Writing the adventure. For the sake of example, let's assume that the party consists of 4 people with level 1 characters created in the SRD5 system, and they have time for one session on a Saturday from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. They are not sure if they want to play more after that. We want to come up with a simple, short adventure that can be completed in that time frame with a satisfying ending. The idea is that the party stumbles into a village which is threatened by a monster, and they'll have to defeat that monster. There are 4 level 1 player characters, so using a CR2 monster might kill some of them, but they'll have the ability to defeat it. I chose the Griffin only because I like Griffins. It doesn't have special immunities or attacks, so there shouldn't be a problem finding equipment against it, but it can fly, which means we can demonstrate its power through attacks without the danger of the party killing it prematurely. Basically, this is very complicated writing that it can fly away. Like we can show off the monster, but it can fly away when it's in danger. Real-time functions. We want to finish the adventure in the allotted time, so let's introduce a real-time component. Let's say the Griffin never attacked humans before, but it will attack and start killing humans if the party doesn't do anything about it. The session ends at 8 p.m, so let's say this attack will happen at 7 p.m. 1 hour should be enough to play out the final combat sequence. Note, the final conflict isn't whether the Griffin is killed, but whether it can kill a villager. But the fact that the Griffin will end the adventure in time isn't enough. The party has to be aware of the time pressure. The idea is to have a green branch with 6 leaves on it, losing 1 leaf at the top of every hour real time, including right at the start. And there is a prophecy that the creature will kill a human when the branch loses its last leaf. In my opinion, this is the least believable part of the fiction, but I think this might actually benefit the adventure. It's a strange mystical phenomenon which can embellish the tone of the story. To make the connection between the branch and the Griffin more tangible, it will attack a livestock every time a leaf falls. As an accidental bonus, the party can end the adventure prematurely by picking off the leaves. Structuring the story. Let's start the story with a dramatic scene, the change in the apparent idyll that makes the conflict obvious. This follows the scriptwriting advice of starting the story as late as we can and props fairy tale structure where the story starts with the antagonist disturbing the idyllic life. The Griffin's first attack on the livestock. The first scene could be an action scene with the Griffin attacking, but I want to set the tone of this rural area introducing the villagers and also make the identity of the monster a bit of a mystery. So let's start with the aftermath of the attack. A couple of goat herds, Bela is an old man and his daughter Emma in her 40s, are standing above disemboweled goats. They are unfazed by the sight and smell. They're old enough to have slaughtered many goats themselves. They view this as a business setback, not a threat to their lives. We want the party to get the real-time indicator from the start, and because we made the goat herd so unfazed for tonal reasons, we need an NPC contrasting their behavior. Joko is the cunning woman of the village. She is adamant that the beast will kill them, and her proof is the branch she is holding. As the goat herds don't believe her, she approaches the party and asks them to stop the beast before it kills someone, giving them the branch and telling them they might be paid by the goat herds for killing the beast. For dramatic reasons, the moment she hands over the branch, it loses its first leaf, the one for this attack. It is very important to get the real-time indicator and the quest at the party as soon as possible, otherwise they might avoid opportunities to get those things. The first scene is a good place to do that because we know where the party is, we don't know when and where they will be later. The backstory and the setting. We don't want this adventure to be too linear, so let's come up with 4 locations of our network: the village, the pasture where the adventure starts, the forest and the hill. Let's make this a dry plateau where the only place for grazing is this one pasture, otherwise the villagers could just go elsewhere. There are paths between all of these nodes except between the village and the hill. The griffin lives on top of the hill. People know not to go up there. We don't want the party to instantly go up the hill from the pasture, so let's introduce an easier way up from the forest. The forest has elks and wolves. The villagers take goats from the village to the pasture. Originally, the griffin was hunting in the forest at night and left the goats alone. The villagers just knew that the beast is living on the hill and is hunting in the forest at nights. They were finding remains. But some time ago, the villagers started to overhunt the forest, so the griffin attacked their goats, eating one and killing the other goats in frustration. Note, this backstory might never be revealed to the party of players. It wasn't written to be learned in a dramatic twist, it's only there to inform the adventure writing. If we have to improvise, we will know what motivates certain characters, even the monster. Every location should have some kind of purpose. The pasture has some clues as to what kind of creature the beast is, and the party can try to gamble a more difficult climb to arrive at a tactically better position on top. The forest serves as an easy way to get to the top, but it also demonstrates the concept of overhunting. In the village they can find resources and information. The mystery. The identity of the beast, being a griffin, is technically a mystery, but let's not get too much attached to the idea that this is a mystery adventure. Our goal isn't to hide the species of the beast until the last moment. It would be ridiculous to think that one of the most basic mythological creatures would be some kind of obscure being. The players know fantasy, they know griffins exist, even if the NPCs or even the PCs don't. Maybe they will realize it after a minute, maybe they will realize it only when they meet the beast. The GM's goal when presenting a mystery shouldn't be hiding it as long as possible, because let's not forget, a GM is all powerful. If you don't want them to realize, they won't realize. If we come up with a mystery, our job is sticking to the facts objectively and let the party find out what they find out at the pace they find it out. It's not our job to put ad hoc obstacles in their way after the fact. Just to hide the species of the beast, even only at the beginning, we had to add some weird things which will be mysterious enough. Until now, the griffin always hunted at nights, no one saw it in daylight before. The attack had to be at daylight if you don't want it to be in the village. And if the initial attack happened in the village, the party would have no reason to go to the pasture, which means we have to do something about the witness. The original herd of the dead goats, let's call him Károly, without killing him. I made him run back to the village in panic, and now he won't talk to anyone. Again, it's a frequent trope in TV shows and movies that the witness is so shocked they can't talk until the end of an episode, but let's not do that here. Let's just put his description of the beast behind a simple skill check. It's okay for the party to find out what creature they are facing. Actually, we want them to find out and we want them to prepare. I actually want them to know how difficult it is to fight a griffin at this level, so I might even show them the stat block when they find out it's a griffin. In my experience, a good mystery is created by giving the players plenty of opportunities to find the solution, so let's place information all over the place but behind skill checks. They find its feces, it's from a big cat. They investigate the corpses, they are killed by a huge bird. And if the party comes up with a way to find out its species you didn't think of, ask for a skill check, and if they succeed, they get the answer they want and not another riddle. Give them as much information as you can, don't withhold anything. A generator matrix for NPCs. As you notice, we have been discussing specific NPCs with names, ages, genders, etc. I did that to make it easier to imagine the adventure, but at this point I didn't have this information yet. I just had the words cunning woman, goat herds, hunters, village head. Yes, there was a village head in the plans. They would have given the quest, the cunning woman would have argued with them instead of the goat herds, etc. But it turns out the village head had no function that the goat herds couldn't carry, so I deleted them. This happened very close to the end of the writing process. Everything else was set in stone, but when I was looking for a name for them, I realized I don't need them. Don't be afraid to cut them pieces, items, locations, even towards the end if you realize you don't need them. Don't get attached to NPCs, items and locations, because even after you delete them, you still get to keep their functions. We know that we need a cunning woman, but everyone else who has any function in the adventure are either goat herds or hunters, so I made a very small generator matrix to create a bunch of these NPCs. The two columns are of course goat herd and hunter, and the rows are ages: elder, middle-aged, young adult, teenager, child. In this generator matrix, the age will define the basic personality. The elders are all about tradition, the middle-aged people are all about habit, the young adults are all about ambition, the teenagers are all about emotional drive, the children are all about fads. According to the backstory, hunting is a recent fad of the villagers, so there won't be a hunter elder, only a goat herd elder, Bela. He knows that the village has always been about herding goats and he doesn't want it to change. If the party insists on finding a village head, the elder can be that. The middle-aged goat herd Emma knows from experience that they can live from the goats, that is why she does it. The young adult goat herd Karoy is emotionally distraught by the attack. The teenage goat herd Nyashta is lazy and would probably lose goats if she wasn't supervised. The middle-aged hunter Orshia is the new factor who arrived at the village. When she arrived with all her hunter experience and cool gear, then started hunting very successfully, others started following her. Vilmos is a young adult hunter, he is enthusiastic. The teenage Gabor would be killed by wolves if he ever went hunting alone. The children are kept at home to help with the goats, but in their free time they play hunter with toy bows. These should be enough NPCs for a short adventure like this, but the number of unique NPCs might be doubled if we added another categorization. For example, being good or bad at what they do, or gender if there's significant difference between the genders in this society. The behavior of the griffin. The last job to do is to create the behavior of the griffin. We need to automatize it because we don't want to waste effort and energy on thinking what it might be doing currently when we're GMing. First, let's come up with a large-scale strategy. Initially, it will attack at the top of every hour. I decided to add a nestling so the party might realize that the griffin isn't evil, it's just trying to survive here. If they kill the nestling while it's away, that changes its behavior, it will start hunting humans and will prioritize the murderers. If they don't attack the nestling, he's still going to attack humans at 7 PM real time. Let's connect these two things. The last attack will be prompted by Orshia killing the nestling. Finishing touches. Now that we have the basic large-scale structure of the adventure, it's time to do the busy work. We need to translate what we know into specific functions. The nodes and paths of the location, the knowledge and wishes of the NPCs, all kinds of hurdles. If we want to make something hard for the party, let's put that behind a mechanical test. If we really want to sell how hard something is, specifically climbing this rock hill, we should combine multiple mechanical tests with non-mechanical descriptions and threats. Don't forget that we don't have to write out everything because we know what the adventure is about. We just write down reminders with specific parameters. We write down everything we don't want to memorize. Don't worry that this isn't the most epic adventure of all time. You only have 6 hours in real time to GM it, and it's way more satisfying to kill that griffin after 4.5 hours than having to stop playing right in the middle of the final battle scene. And don't worry if your players won't succeed, the griffin killing a villager might also be a fitting end to this adventure. Note that it's possible for the player characters to die, because this is supposed to be a one-off session and the party should definitely be warned about it. Okay, these are the functions on the 2 pages. Okay, so this is our map. This is our no map map. We have the pasture, village, hilltop, and giant's arch. The only 2 nodes not connected are the village and the hilltop. Everything else is connected. Opening. Narration: pasture under a 1,000-foot rock hill on a barren plateau. Description: a dozen of gutted dead goats. Description: Bela and Emma scratching their heads unfazed. Zhoka is pestering them. Info: Zhoka, the beast is going to murder when the last leaf falls. Action: Zhoka gives the branch 6 leaves. First leaf falls. Excuse me. Request Joka protect the herds they might pay. Test DC 15 Charisma Persuasion to get 200 grams 200 gold for the beast or 100 gold. Grams. Okay. The list of villagers. Bela, male 70s, village elder traditionalist. Joka, female 50s, cunning woman. Emma, female 40s, Bela's daughter, experienced goat herd. Orsia, female 40s, cool hunter, moved in 1 year ago. Karoy, male 20s, young goat herd, shocked by attack. Info, the beast lives on the hilltop. Info, the beast has been hunting in the forest at nights. Info, hunting is a new fad since Orsia moved in. Okay, these are the NPCs. Jok, cunning woman, ancient wisdom but down to earth. Info, ancient highway is remnant of an empire. Info, spirits told her the beast will kill humans. Action, make poisons out of the beast's fur, feather, feces for 1 gold per charge. The beast DC 20 cons save or paralyze for 1d6 rounds. So the party can prepare. Orsia, newcomer hunter, cool experience hunter, moved here 1 year ago, is preparing to hunt the beast. Action, sells +1 arrows or bolts for 1 gold each. Last leaf kills the nestling. Caro, young goat. This is a conditional. This is one of those conditional functions. Caro, young goat herd, shocked by attack, ran home, can't talk. Test DC 20 Charisma Persuasion to describe the attack and the beast. Beast strategy, real-time function, top of every hour 1 leaf falls. If a leaf falls or the night falls, attacks. Prey preferences, first lure, second herd. If last leaf falls, Orsia kills nestling. If nestling's dead, then the preferences change for first murderer by sight, dark vision 60 feet, second murderer by smell, 1 in 20 if washed. Well, you can wash off the smell. Third, test DC 10 intelligence -2 party. 4, test DC 5 intelligence -2 hunter. 5, first accessible human. And attack, these are the stats of the beast. Beast tactics, not human. If loses 1 HP, flies away. Scares people. Kills many goats as revenge. Eats 1 goat 10 minutes naturally. Beast tactics, human, angry. At 25 HP, flies away. Wants to kill 1 person, then fly away. Okay, and this is the map, basically. Pasture village, this is a path. Description, path beaten by herd. From between the village and Giant's Arch. Description, forest starts abruptly. Description, dark and cold forest. Description, bear traps, night, wolf caught. So that at night the wolf is in the bear traps. Between pasture and hilltop. Description, narrow ledges, sharp stones. Description, biting wind. Test DC 20 Constitution save or +1 exhaustion. Test DC 20 strength, athletics, or fall. DC 20 strength, athletics, or dex acrobatics to 1d6 damage or die. Narration, arrive on hilltop in cover. Between pasture and Giant's Arch. Description, ancient overgrown broken stone highway. Description, under an unclimbable barren rock wall. Description, trees getting thicker. Description, day, axe gazing idyllic. Description, night, wolf howling. Action, first time, hunters dramatically kill an animal. Description, dark and cold forest. From Giant's Arch to the hilltop. Description, overgrown natural giant steps. Upwards, test DC 15 Constitution save or +1 exhaustion. Upwards says DC 10 strength athletics or back to start because you fall down. Downwards, test DC 10 strength athletics or dex acrobatics not to fall or 1 damage and prone. Description, more and more barren. Description, biting wind. And these were the paths, and these are the nodes. Pasture. Description, thick grass on barren plateau. Description 16 feet high carved pole signs the place. Description bottom of 1,000 feet high rock hill. Description white spots on rock wall and bottom. First day herds dumping corpses in sacks. Info corpses will be lures for hunters. Test DC 15 intelligence nature or investigation 8 from only 1 corpse. Test DC 20 intelligence nature. Beak and claw damage large size bird. Test DC 10 intelligence nature white spots are feces. Test DC 20 intelligence nature feces are from big cat. Giant's arch. Description unbeaten. Natural giant stairs to hilltop. Description 2 huge trees form a natural 30 feet high arch. Description shaky trees stand on right tree. Description hunter in tree stand. Village. Description 1 street next to the forest. Description pens for goats behind the houses. Descriptions children playing hunter with toy bow. Hilltop. Description narrow rock outcropping. Mechanic difficult terrain. This is a mechanical function. Description natural giant stairs to south. Description nest of branches on outcropping to north. Description griffon nesting in nest. Description beast 10 minutes after attack returns to feed. Description beast screams at everyone to scare them. Beast tactics nest priorities. First, defend nesting with life. Second, remembers nestling's attackers to prioritize. Third, pushes attackers off ledges. Strength +4. Fall in pasture hilltop. Yeah, so from pasture to hilltop. Here's the fall. DC 15 athletics or acrobatics. That's functions, everyone. That's functions. It helped me a lot. It helped me so much to actually make good adventures. And I'm so tired and my throat is parched. Jeez, talking takes a lot more than just playing. So I guess this is where I end the stream. You can get all these functions through the link for half the price right now. For I don't know how long. I cannot do the math. Next stream will be in like 22 hours when we're going to play Witcher 2, which is a terrible game, but it's still fun. It's still fun. So you can see me tomorrow. Have a nice day. Until then, this is Augie signing off.